Okay, we are live but crooked. Let's try to get this a little fixed up. All right, I think that's a little better. Excuse the dishes in the background. Our dishwasher's broken and all I've done is wash dishes. But hello. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Happy Wednesday. For those of you guys who are new here, I'm Kate Horning. I am a chef. I'm a nutritionist. I am super passionate about helping busy women simplify healthy living. So everything that I teach in this group is all around that. And I'm passionate about carb cycling. So today is going to be a regular macro day recipe. We are making my Tuscan spaghetti squash with chicken. It's super easy. It's pretty quick. The longest thing for this recipe is the spaghetti squash. So I talk a lot about rolling meal prep in a lot of my Instagram stories, a lot of my work, and that essentially just means to kind of roll through the week, think ahead, prep ahead. So last night I cut my spaghetti squash while my dinner was cooking, and I popped it in the oven for 30 minutes, and I've got it already ready to go. So I love to kind of prep ahead little elements of my meal, so that way the whole meal comes together in a little less time and with a little less effort. So the full recipe that I'm sharing with you guys tonight will be inside of my meal planning app, A Healthy Passion. I'll link it below. Probably later this week, early next week. But of course, you guys can cook right along with me if you want, if that's your style. So I'm going to run through the ingredients of what you'll need if you want to make this at home. And then we'll just dive in. How's that sound? Okay. So, and I'm like really high energy right now. I've been talking to clients all day and I've had like the best day ever. So I know I talk really fast, but bear with me here. So here's what you guys need if you want to make this at home. First thing is spaghetti squash, and I have taken this and I actually shot a reel of myself doing this. I cut my finger doing it because I had the camera and all this equipment in my way. But I took this and I cut it into rings. I roasted it 425 olive oil, salt, and pepper for 30 minutes until it's tender. And then what I love about cutting it in rings is number one, it slows down. It speeds up the cooking time. But number two, it creates this like spiral, almost like pasta, like ribbons, pasta like strands. Where when you cut it in half, number one, harder, takes longer, but it doesn't go with the grain, so you actually get like more just little pieces of spaghetti squash, where this actually looks more like pasta. So that is what I've got here, spaghetti squash. Of course, chicken. So I've got chicken breast. I've got garlic, onion, sun-dried tomatoes. I have some store-bought ones, and I have some homemade ones, so I'm gonna use a little bit of both. Some half and half, some Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, or Pecorino Romano, which is what I'm using. So we've got like 6 blocks of it open. I don't know why. Some fresh basil, some Italian herbs or herbs de Provence, and then spinach. So very simple. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically cook the chicken, create a sauce for the spaghetti squash, and then pull it all together. So I need a skillet for that, which got one out, obviously. Got a lot of them out. And I'm gonna start with the sauce. I'm actually trying to time the chicken for when Mike gets home, so I'm gonna do it towards the end, and then I'll show you guys like the finished product like I always do. I'm just gonna show you here on video the squash and the sauce, because pan roasting chicken is very simple. I have about 150 recipes in A Healthy Passion that teach you how to do it, so if you need help, you can follow those. Okay, so in my ingredients list, I'm pretty sure I put shallot, but I have an onion cut and I don't want to waste it, so I'm going to do that. But if you're using a shallot, you're just going to use the whole shallot. If you're using an onion, you'll use about 1/4 of the onion. And that's the thing, you know, when you're really trying to dial in on weight loss, you want to be a little bit more specific, a little bit more exact. But when you get to the point where you're maintaining, it's really just about consistency. So with A Healthy Passion, all of the recipes are very simple, but you'll see I tend to swap quite often, where it's like, okay, I don't have a shallot, but I have an onion, like no big deal. I'm still, you know, doing better than I would if I had no plan. And if you guys are on watching live, say hello. If you're watching the replay later, say hello as well. But what are y'all doing? What are you up to? I see a bunch of you on here, which feels really good because I've missed y'all. And I'm gonna get back to once a week for the foreseeable future. We're back from our travels for a while. I don't have anything going on major till Thanksgiving, so I will be back on here a little more consistently. All right, so that's gonna go in. I just diced it up. It's so hard being out a finger. I don't know what to do with it. I just feel like it's like up all the time. I was on Instagram stories earlier talking about it. And last time I cut myself was Christmas. My parents got me my very first Wulfstaff. I don't know where my head is right now. Wulfstaff knife. It was my very first like professional knife. And I had a couple cranberry mojitos, and my boyfriend at the time was over, and I was like, let me show you how to use my knife. Well, I sliced my finger like right off. It was so bad. I had to have like a little splint put on it. It was embarrassing. And I cut myself pretty bad. And that was probably like, I want to say I was 21, 22. I was pretty young. I think I was 21. So that's the last time I've cut myself. So it's been a while. So this is pretty humbling to say the least. But I need to find a better setup for my overhead camera because I literally can't see what I'm doing, which I do not recommend cutting spaghetti squash with a very sharp knife blindfolded. Okay, so 3 garlic cloves are going in. I love garlic, so I'm just gonna use a lot in this recipe. And you guys can see I have stuff going in my pan and my pan is not on. I do that all the time because I wanna make sure I'm really cooking everything and keeping an eye on it and not burning and not overcooking. So I like to kind of get everything prepped and then we can turn the pan on. Okay, so onion and garlic go in. To that, I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of olive oil and I'm gonna sweat it out. And that's gonna create the base for our sauce. So I'm gonna get about a medium. And this burner has been giving me trouble all day. I have the repair guys supposedly coming out to fix it, so bear with me if it goes out. But medium heat, medium flame. And then I always add salt to my onion to draw out the moisture, to draw out the liquid and allow it to really caramelize versus like brown. Yeah, that's it for a minute. So while that's happening, you know, it's not a cooking segment without a glass of wine. And we opened this one last night. This is the 2020 low sugar wine, only wine I drink. Resident Syrah from Wahaluki Slope, Washington. We had this last night. It has less than 1 gram of carbs per glass. I think it has 114 calories, super low calorie. If you like big, bold red wine, this is for you. It is so good. It's got so much fruit like blueberry, vanilla. I think it's aged on oak. I cannot remember French or American. But Mike and I, you can tell we loved it. We drank 3/4 of the bottle. But it's a big, bold, dry red wine. I would recommend this for sure with like beef stew or any sort of, we had steak last night, so steak. It's just a good, cozy wintertime wine. And if you guys like wine, I have a Facebook group for that. So it's called Low Sugar Wine. I'll drop the link below, but come hang out in there. We taste wine and talk about it and share recipes that pair with wine. It's super fun. So this is gonna be my wine for tonight because I think it'll go really well with all the Tuscan flavors we've got going on. Oh my God, it's so good. So good. I love wine. Okay, so that is gonna sweat out. I'm gonna let that go for about a minute or two, and then I'm gonna add my sun-dried tomatoes. And then while that is happening, I will go ahead and get my cheese grated. I need about 1/4 cup. So I'm gonna grab my little zester here and just kind of get it all ready to go. And that's the great thing about pretty much all of my Healthy Passion recipes. If you guys are hanging around here often, you see when I cook live, like there's really not a lot of like stress. Like it's really just very simple, very straightforward. My goal is to create a finished dish. So you're not making this recipe and this recipe and this recipe and trying to pull it all together, but rather you're just cooking a meal. And you know, the biggest beef I have with tracking macros or any sort of tracking, Mom, you want to join? You can't join. You want to get on live? Sorry, interruptions. You can get on live with you. We should do that, actually. It'd be fun, cook together. But the biggest beef and biggest issue I have with with tracking macros, which is really an essential part of carb cycling, is that so often we lose the ability to just eat a meal. You know, we're sitting there, we're having this chicken and this broccoli and this rice, and it really takes the pleasure and enjoyment, which to me is my favorite thing about food, is sitting down to a delicious meal. So with my app, I really try to make it so that you're just cooking a meal, your whole family can eat it, you're enjoying it, and it's just normal. Like this is just life, because I don't care what anyone says, if you can't stick with it, for the long term, there's really no point. So even carb cycling, like once you get to maintenance, once you get to where you want to be, you're still going to continue doing what you did to get there. Because if you don't, you're going to end up back where you started. Okay, so that looks good. So to that, I'm going to add about 2 cups of fresh spinach. 2 generous cups because I got a lot of spinach and it's wilted down. So that is going to go in. And we always season every layer of our dish. So a little pinch of salt. And I think I had red pepper on the thing, but I'm liking a black pepper mood. I think it's the wine. Black pepper's going to go in. You're going to sweat that down. And y'all saw when I cut my garlic, I sliced it. I did not mince it because you don't want it to burn. The worst thing you can do is, no, you don't want to get in the video. I didn't think so. The worst thing you can do is mince your garlic and then let it get brown because that's going to become bitter. So we want to make sure nice slices. And then we've got about, I don't know, a 1/4 cup of sun-dried tomatoes going in. You want the ones in oil for this because they're just going to add so much more flavor. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the ones from my garden. And if you all want to learn how to make oven-dried tomatoes, they're so simple. It's such a good way to preserve your harvest. That's a lesson for another day, though. Okay, so that is cooking down. So while that is happening, we are going to, we got our cheese grated. I'm going to grab a measuring spoon or measuring cup. We can measure out our liquid. But I'm just going to take my strands and I'm going to take a fork. And you want to use a fork for this because it does allow them to separate into strands a little bit better than like a spoon or a spatula or whatever. You're just going to kind of separate the flesh of the squash from the skin. That way we can add it in there. And you could add white wine to this. I don't think I put it on my thing, but I thought about it. I think I may. I don't know. Sounds really good for some reason, adding a little white wine. You could add chicken stock, veggie stock. I think I'm going to go the white wine route. And usually when I come up with these ideas for my Facebook Live, it's always like what you guys are, you know, wanting or requesting. So it's like my first go at it is in my head. And that's when I post 1/4 cup. Oh yeah. And we'll reduce the heat down to low. Let that cook off. So typically for these recipes, the first idea is in my head. So I start with like the ingredients list for you guys. And then I start cooking and the creativity comes out. So I sort of will add a few things or change it up. Then I will retest it, and then it goes into a healthy passion. So usually what you see on here isn't always the end product, but it's pretty darn close. Okay, and if you guys are not familiar with the Healthy Passion, it's a meal planning app. It literally lays out everything that you need to carb cycle. So if you're new to carb cycling or you're wanting to get started and you're like, I don't know what to do, you'll put in your height, your weight, your age, all that info, and the software will calculate your numbers for you. And it'll actually lay out like, here's your protein, your carbs, your fat goals for a low carb day. Here's for a high carb day. So it makes it very, very easy. And then you just start plugging in food or recipes. So if you guys are not using it yet and you're wanting to dial in on your nutrition, or if you just want delicious, easy recipe ideas, but definitely check it out. Again, I'll link it in the comments after I get off of here. Okay, so that wine cooked off. So now we're going to add our half and half, and this is just going to create like a luscious, velvety, creamy, delicious sauce. And I like half and half over heavy cream. I don't know. I just find that heavy cream is like too much for me. Half and half gives you all the same silky, velvety deliciousness. I used a half a cup. Did I say that? Half cup. But it's just not so heavy. So then that is going to cook down. We're still going on there. Now, if I was doing this recipe like start to finish, just to break it down for you guys, I would start with the squash, like I said, 30 minutes. When that's in for about 20 minutes, then I would start working on this. When I start working on this, I would put the chicken in. and the squash will come out because you want it to be able to cool a little bit so you can touch it. Again, if you can do it in advance, that's ideal. Then chicken will go in, then you start doing the sauce. Then the squash goes into the sauce, the chicken comes out, it all comes together. So that is definitely another thing that I really try to think out in my recipes is like the flow of like, okay, do this first, do this next. That way it's as effortless as possible. Okay, so squash is peeled. Sauce is smelling so good. Okay, so this is gonna go in. Oops, I got a little chunk of peel in there. I'm telling you, it's really tough to function without a finger. Okay, let me get that off. All right, so squash is gonna go in, and with this, you wanna make sure that you're gentle. You don't wanna break it down. So actually, I would recommend, I thought I had some tongs already. I would recommend taking tongs and just kind of like, see how I'm kind of working it into the sauce, and then just sort of tossing the sauce over. So it's a lot like pasta where you want to cook it in the sauce briefly so it really absorbs some of that flavor, but you don't want to like mush it up. Okay, so that looks good. It smells so good, you guys, that garlic and so good. I'm glad I added the wine too. I feel like that was just that little touch it needed. Okay, and then I almost have my cheese grated, but about a 1/4 cup of cheese is gonna go in. So I'm just gonna take my knife and scoop that in, and we're just gonna cook that in to the pasta, to the spaghetti squash, whatever you wanna call it, to give it all that yummy, melty, cheesy flavor. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. Okay, so that is going off the heat. No more heat. And I'm gonna put these guys out of the way. The last thing we're gonna do is some fresh basil. And this is still growing from my garden somehow. We've had frost and it's still going strong. So I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna take 4 leaves because I like basil. And then roll it up like a little cigar. Same way you do any of your greens. Tip of the knife on the cutting board. Nice thin ribbons. Sprinkled over top. I grab my little tongs here. I'm gonna do a little pinch of salt just because I know like the squash could use a little more seasoning. Kind of work that basil in. And then should I give it a taste? I feel like I should give it a taste because it smells so good. I am gonna show you guys though before I do. You see that? It looks so good. Looks so good, so good. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a fork. Shoot the trash can. And you could hit it with a little more cheese on top if you're like a big cheese person. So that's the other thing with, you know, planning, tracking. Plug this in and then you can always add to it if you want to add a little more cheese or you want to add something else on the side or whatever. Okay, I'm trying to get a little bit of everything in my bite because you gotta have the perfect bite, right? I mean, I could eat this whole thing. That was so good. It's like creamy, but not too much. I like the wine kind of cut the acid, cuts through the creaminess. That cheese, melty. Those sun-dried tomatoes are like tangy, sweet, yum. I love it. And so for the chicken, I do have, like I said, the Italian herbs of Provence. I would salt, pepper, olive oil, herbs, 5 minutes on each side in the 425 oven for 8 to 10 minutes till it's cooked through. So I will send you guys like the final product, the final picture. Again, it will be in the meal planning app by next week. And I'm gonna enjoy this for dinner tonight. I hope to see you guys here soon. If you guys have any suggestions or requests for recipe ideas, pop them in the comments. I'll likely be on next Tuesday because I've got a dinner party next Wednesday. So keep an eye out. I'll probably post Monday what I'm cooking and Monday the ingredients list if y'all want to cook with me. And I will see you all soon. Have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with me. Cheers.